because you're not cool like us.
But I could do it.
Speaking of beer, I miss Spotted Cow.
Okay. Can we? I just want to start with a primer, like a premise, and see if we agree.
Yeah.
Are there trans kids in the world?
No.
There are no trans kids. Trans kids are just, they don't exist.
Well, I mean, there's kids that exist that might be told that they're trans, but there's not actually such thing as trans people because chromosomes exist. You can't transition from one to the other. That's my.
Do you think think that's what we mean by trans? That your chromosomes become that of a woman or a man?
Well, I don't believe that there's that.
I'm trying to figure out who you're responding to. Like, who's arguing that chromosomes change if you're trans?
I don't know. Are you arguing that?
No, I would never argue that.
So what do you? Okay, what do you mean by trans kids? I guess define that first.
By trans kids, I mean people who identify with a gender that is incompatible with their sex.
Okay, define that further.
Okay, you have a birth sex, like you say, chromosomes. A set of gametes, a set of physical characteristics. You want to define a woman? Remember, what is a woman? We could say it's an adult human female, right? Trans is not saying none of that's true. Trans does not mean none of that's true. All of that's still true. All trans means is the gender, which is a set of social norms, which is a set of internal identities, a set of behaviors or characteristics that one tends to associate with the sex, is different, that it's incongruous.
Isn't that stereotyping women behaviors or vice versa then?
No, not even a little bit.
Do you think it's a stereotype?
Because why, if it's just a social construct, why go through all that mess if it's all about how you feel anyways? Like why, you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't. If it's all a social construct, why go through that mess? You go through that mess because trans people exist. Because you have to have these people exist and you have to integrate them into society.
But how do you know who's who? Can you be trans and then can you not be trans though?
I have to ask you on that. How do you know who's Christian?
Black. How do you know who's Christian?
I'm sorry. What would you prefer me to refer to?
I mean, to quote the Bible, you know them by their works. You know them by their fruit.
So you know them by their feelings, by how they self-identify.
It's not their feelings, actualize in actions. And just like you it's a belief system. So the definition of belief is living as if something exists, living as if it's real.
Everyone's going to have a different definition of this, though, right? There's going to be somebody else that says, no, that's a heresy. You're not actually a Christian.
Now, here's my point in that. I don't want to live in a society that forces you to prove that you're Christian. I don't want to have an objective marker of what is and is not a Christian. Mm-hmm. Surely you would agree that there's no measurement, there's no test,
Correct.
There's no dipstick that you can put in someone's brain to choose that they're Christian. I am comfortable, even though I'm an atheist, I'm comfortable just letting people identify with religions as they will, because that's the society I want to live in.
Yep.
Same thing would apply to sexuality, right? I can't prove scientifically, biologically that I'm gay. And same thing with y'all. If assuming that you're straight, that's an assumption that I might be wrong on. I don't want you to have to prove that you're straight because that's not really cool, right? Like it all has to do with experience, and that and identity.
But nobody's suggesting that you need to prove anything. To me, like transgender, like you're either living as the opposite gender or you're not. So that's why I prefer transsexual.
Well, because transsexual is usually referred to you have undergone procedures to medical procedures to live gender.
Like you understand there are people who identify with the opposite gender but don't have the money or have the means or the resources to go through any of the therapy or feminization or facial feminization surgery or
I was sorry, what about surgery? We're just about clothes. Like you could not do a surgery, but you could dress as the opposite gender, and that counts to it.
Should children be allowed to dress as the opposite gender in school?
It's going to get really weird when you start to talk about this. Like if the kid wants to wear the dress, I don't know.
I have to ask.
Maybe they don't talk about it.
Well,
but sitting there teaching it.
Trans kids can't talk about being trans.
But the thing is, what if some kid wore weird orange pants every day? Like, would we sit there and make a big thing of why this kid's wearing orange pants, or would we say, look, we don't make fun of other people's clothing, we don't talk about it, shut up, let's do math.
If your argument is we shouldn't make a big thing of people's gender, I absolutely agree.
Hell yeah.
The problem is we live in a world where people are making big things of people's gender and calling people who are trans. Firstly, they're denying that they exist, and then they're basically calling them pedophiles or groomers. But we have to make a point to
but the thing is,
make a point of acceptance for these people, because these people's gender is constantly under attack.
This wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't for their saying we want to include gender identity in math class. There's just no point for it. If they were saying that, then this wouldn't be an issue. It's the thing is, they want to teach a gender identity math class. We were talking before about, like, if you're going to do math and you're going to say, okay, well, 50 million slaves came over, 10% of them died. How many Africans died?
Well,
like, you're purposely asking like ideological questions in your math. Like,
how
you could be doing the
has
same thing.
Moms and ideological questions?
Like, why?
It's discriminatory against people who don't believe that, which is a large portion of the country. Over 60% of people, for example, are in support of the parental rights bill in Florida. It's not called the Don't Say Gay bill. It has nothing to do with gay people.
It absolutely does.
In particular.
I have to ask.
No, it doesn't.
Wait. Can I?
But
Black pill person versus what? Can you have a name that I can call you instead of black pill?
Yeah, Mick.
Mick?
Mick.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
First, are you fine with I leave
No, you're
the
good.
camera off because I'm fuck ugly? Mick, would I be allowed to present a math problem under the Don't Say Gay bill with as Sally has two moms? If I say Sally has two moms, two dogs, and four siblings, how many people are in Sally's entire family, including pets?
I don't know. Can you? I don't
I'm
know.
asking you, would I be allowed to?
Should you be allowed to, or are you allowed to according to the bill?
He's not a lawyer, so
let's start with should.
Me personally, if I was making the rules, no.
Okay, but if I said Sally has a mom and a dad,
it's about being gay.
Yeah, like how else do I look at this? If Sally has,
I'm talking about the bill. I'm not talking about my personal beliefs. I'm talking about what the bill says.
Well, then on that note, what the bill actually says, the bill's sponsor outright says it's designed to not allow questions like Sally has two moms into the classroom.
Well, that's implicitly that's an ideological implication into a subject that should not exist.
How is that ideological? How is Sally has?
How is it not? You're redefining marriage. You're redefining these basic other institutions that exist that most people actually don't agree with. Turns out.
No. Hang on, please. We're not redefining anything. There are gay people and they are married. We're not redefining marriage. Marriage has already been redefined. All we're doing is using a relatable example. Somebody might have two moms.
Redefined by a court with
it's
a few judges on that.
But you're relying Michael. You're relying on an abstraction that they can't necessarily make. Go back to my example. If you line up again with a young kid, take 6 marbles, line them up 1 foot. Take the other 6, line them up 2 foot long. Ask them which one has more marbles, and they'll say the longer one. Right? They can later see through this. There's a concept of a mother. Right? This is the person that gave the ovum. Right? And the father is the person that gave the sperm. When you say they have 2 fathers. This is weird. Like, okay, especially when you're teaching this in layers, this is a concept an adult can understand. When I hear someone has 2 fathers, what I know is that person had a mother and a father biologically, but they are gay parents. They're being raised by gay parents. I can abstract that. A 4-year-old cannot abstract this.
I'm sorry, both of you have contradicted yourselves so many times. Brian, do you think that when you your description of what a mother and father is, do you think that a 4-year-old has a conception of, mother, father, mother donated sperm?
No, they don't. But
father donated sperm, mother donated ova. That's what.
Why would they be confused if that's
But they get the basic definitions. What you're trying to teach algebra when they don't know long division. So this is the problem. You have to teach the basics first. This is why Sally has a mom and a dad is different than Sally has 2 dads.
Do you really think people are going to be confused by somebody having 2 moms? Here's the only situation.
Yes.
Yeah,
you're assuming that it's the same thing.
Wait. Here's why
you're an adult.
You're right. Here's why I can assume those people would be confused, because they have parents who don't teach them about gay people, and they have a school that's been bullied into silence telling them about gay people.
Or that ethically disagree with it.
You're going to need a lot of proof for that.
I ethically disagree with Christianity. I still don't think that Christians should be ostracized.
It's okay. This is what we're arguing. We're arguing who is going to impose their worldview. We're not arguing that there's no worldview being imposed. It's which worldview is going to be imposed.
You're imposing the worldview. You're the one saying don't say gay. And
atheism is a worldview.
Yeah, so is Christianity.
It's a specific ideological implication.
So are your ethics
that they're teaching on kids.
Your ethics.
I'm not arguing that I shouldn't. I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing against teaching a worldview. I'm not arguing against teaching good or bad? A set of objective values. I'm not against that. I'm against what they're teaching.
Oh, so you actually don't give a shit if they're teaching ideology or worldviews. It's just if
no, because everyone's doing that anyways.
Exactly.
Even the idea that you shouldn't teach a worldview is a worldview.
So it is forcing a worldview onto gay or trans teachers or gay or families in Florida. That basically gay or trans people can't be discussed in schools. That's the worldview that's being forced.
Okay, so hierarchy exists in education, right? Everybody has a hierarchy individually, societally. Hierarchies exist. That's fairly obvious, correct? The question is, what is that hierarchy going to be? What's going to be at the top of that hierarchy that then defines what's on each level going down? That's what we're arguing right now. We're not arguing about whether or not trans people exist specifically. We're not really arguing about whether or not,
could you
ideology should be taught. Ideology should be taught. It's which one are we going to teach? That's what this argument is really about.
Which ideology are we trying to teach by banning discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity?
But we're not. The Florida law bans it up to third grade. At that point,
or until
grade, you have enough ability to abstract these concepts to not be confused. So the problem is
that is true as well.
I'm curious. I get that you guys are coming from a point of empathy that you don't want to exclude these people. You don't want bullying. I get that. But the thing is, I don't think you're paying enough attention to unintended consequences.
Brian, like here's my beef with this conversation. No, I'll speak. Let me talk. Let me talk.
Coke and then rage at the phone or something.
All right. So, right, here's how this is what frustrates me about this conversation. Mick just said that it's not the Don't Say Gay bill, but also he admitted that no, gay families are different than straight families, and you shouldn't mention gay families. It is the Don't Say Gay bill. He agrees it's the Don't Say Gay bill. Okay. He agrees that that being gay, that gay families are not appropriate to teach kids. He agrees that in a way that it wouldn't be applied to straight families.
I don't think that you should be talking about that either way with little kids like that. I don't think a state employee should be talking about that either way with young kids, like the point Brian was making.
Do you honestly look at me in the eyes? I'm trying to find what camera is working. Look me in the eyes and say that it's inappropriate to say it's up to third grade.
You're trying to bait me into a discussion that this really isn't about.
I'm trying to get you to be consistent.
I've already told you what I think about that.
Do you think it's inappropriate for a third grader to learn about mothers and fathers?
To learn about the mothers and fathers?
Right.
No, I think it's inappropriate for a state employee to teach them about that.
So if they had a reading class, we teach more subjects than math, right? We teach reading, we teach social studies starting at a pretty early age.
PE.
Yeah, we teach PE. We teach a lot of different subjects, and so a lot of reading, a lot of stories that kids learn about have heterosexual relationships. Cinderella gets married at the end of the book. A lot of classic children's stories involve heterosexual relationships, and you don't apply those arguments to them. That's why it's very.
You have to learn the rule before you learn the exception to the rule, though. I don't see
what I
that's
said
a problem.
before.
No one's saying it's better.
Yeah, but going back to what I said before, it's what worldview are we going to impose on children? Because we're doing it one way or the other. If
it's not a worldview, though, it's stages.
Okay, you guys at some point people are debate, please.
We don't have to. You guys don't have to agree with each other. I don't have to agree with him either. We all can stick our own positions. Okay. My point is by teaching too complex questions early, you confuse and potentially damage.
Brian,
nobody's saying you can't talk about gay in high school and stuff like that. That's not an argument. What I'm saying is by that time you've done it.
What's complex about gay people?
Again, abstractions, mothers and fathers, because a mom gives birth, you get that. Dad provides for this. They look different. Kids get this. To say two fathers, you're confused right away. It's what's going on? Now you have to get into the deep explanation, often ideological.
Really that deep?
It's an extreme exception to the rule. There's what, a percent of people in the population are actually gay, and less than that actually married with kids.
Yeah, it is.
It's such a
again.
It's not hard. This is not confusing at all.
And you could see right through my marbles thing.
I'm trying to steamroll you right now. This is not hard to figure out for kids.
Okay.
They have mothers, they have fathers, they can understand. There's in the same way mommy and daddy can love each other, so can daddy and mommy and mommy. It's not that complicated.
Well, then why can't they see through the marbles test? Why can't they immediately pick out that they both have 6 marbles and I've just spaced them out more? Tell me why they can't do that.
Because those two things are very, very different.
If you have to teach,
now you need
if you have to explicitly like show, like you don't have to teach kids that parents exist. Everybody knows that.
Exactly.
You don't have to. You do have to go out of your way to teach kids. Well, look. This student has 2 parents of the same gender. This parent has this student has 2.
Obvious.
So you have to go out of your way to explain what that is to kids.
Both of you are
that's ideological.
Bad. Let's say we do. Why is that bad?
Why is what bad?
Why is it bad to explain to kids what gay is?
Because we're talking about values then, and we're talking specifically even about religious values that a lot of people in this country, especially in places like Florida, do in fact hold to.
Why should your
so now we're having state employees teach a different religious perspective about what marriage is to young impressionable kids. I don't think parents want that.
Fact about what marriage is. Marriage is between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, or a woman and a woman.
Yep,
I disagree.
That is a fact.
That's a fact.
I'm telling you, I disagree, and a lot of people like me disagree. Right. This is why the bill exists.
Hang on. If we're going to try to teach kids like what a mammal is, right? And we're trying to teach them categorizations, right? And you would say, okay, has hair, has a placenta, gives birth that way, also secretes milk through a nipple, right? These are like 3 of the main things that you would see in a mammal. Now, the platypus also fits this, but the platypus is weird. It's got a bill. It secretes milk, but through the skin, not a nipple. And it is a mammal, yet it lays eggs. It's the exception to the rule. Why not teach the basics? And then later on in high school, then you can teach the exceptions of why platypus actually counts, but it doesn't fit the normal mold.
You know where I learned what a platypus was? From school, when I learned those same rules about mammals. I don't know why teaching exceptions is so confusing. Here's a generalized trend you can observe, but here's some exceptions to it. Sure. Generally, people are heterosexual. Sometimes there's gay people. Generally, people identify with their birth gender. Here's some trans people. What's confusing about that?
Because so we should start talking about imaginary numbers and for algebra 2 in 5th grade, or or it's kindergartners. Let's introduce the concept of I. They're not going to understand what an imaginary number is.
You think
that's what I mean? That's all relying on abstractions.
So they can't understand.
And the way you're talking about mothers and fathers, the way they're going to talk about sex, and then transgender and multi-gender. These are all abstractions, and I don't think the 4-year-olds are going to get them.
Yeah, no, bullshit. The best way to get them to understand any of these concepts is to not hide these concepts from kids. Let the kids learn these things.
Okay, well then what about torture? When do they learn about the concept of torture?
Fuck,
that happens.
Come on.
That's inappropriate. It's age inappropriate.
Why is gay age inappropriate?
Because again,
it's like I said, it's redefining values as well.
Why is torture age appropriate?
What values being redefined by explaining that gay people exist?
Again, confusion.
It's not that explaining that they exist. That's not the problem.
Because kids get some kind of basis in their identity.
Okay,
destabilizing that is weird.
Mick, please let me have a conversation with Mick. Mick, if it's not a problem, then why would it be bad to explain to kids that gay people exist?
Because it's the presupposition that it's how they're explaining it to them from that young, I don't think you should have that maybe if parents want to do that, sure, that's the whole idea is parents should have the right to do it, not the state.
If there's nothing wrong with teaching that gay people exist, and it's not just that. Why would you have a problem?
I personally don't have kids right now, but in the future, I'm not going to have that conversation with my 5-year-old. I'm not going to have that conversation with my even 6 or 7-year-old.
You're not answering the question.
Okay.
If there's no problem with teachers explaining that gay people exist, why would you object to a teacher doing that?
I just said state employees should not be explaining that.
Why? You just said there was no problem with it.
I said there's no problem explaining to a child that that's a thing, but I don't think the state should be the one imposing that. And look, listen, a lot of the teachers teaching this stuff, they're doing it as if like, oh, this is fine. They're doing it as if they're adopting this redefinition, this atheistic redefinition of marriage. Okay. A lot of people don't agree with that.
What?
Do you understand that? A lot of parents are very upset about that.
All right,
because they don't hold that view.
All right, I got a bone to pick with both of you. I got a bone to pick with Brian. So, Brian, if all of your arguments are true, is it confusing? Is it immoral to let gay people adopt kids? Would that confuse them?
No.
Okay, exactly. Exactly.
People, wait. Will that confuse them? Like, it's first of all, two questions. One, no, it's not immoral. Now, the parents are free to teach whatever they want. I can't stop them. Like, I could disagree with them and these gay parents teaching gay and gender identity at 4 years old. I could disagree with them, but it's the right to do it.
All right. Okay. So.
I don't think they should, though. I don't think they should.
Awesome. So it is fine for gay people to have kids, and that's not going to confuse the kids. And then those kids
can't explain gay people to kids.
Yeah, and then those kids are then going to go to school.
I would think gay parents would probably be wise to do the same thing and wait till these are age appropriate. I don't see why gay people couldn't agree with me and say, "Look, I'm not going to talk to my kid about this until they're 8."
Okay. No, because like the kid's going to see that they have 2 dads, and they're going to see that they have a mom and a dad, or they're going to see that they have a mom and a mom. Right? They're going to see that it's going to be like normal for them.
Now, gay is a little bit. I'll agree with you on this. Gay is easier to abstract than trans.
Okay, and now sure. For now, we'll say that. And now we need to like shift it over to Nick. I don't think that you're consistent. I don't think that you believe what you say you believe. Because if you say that the state shouldn't be imposing this on children, why are you in favor of the Don't Say Gay bill? Because this enforces a worldview on children. It enforces the view that gay is inappropriate to teach kids. You do want.
I don't think the state should be imposing. I don't think the state should be imposing that value on the kids.
Should the state have education mandated?
I don't think the state should be. I'm sorry. What?
Should the state have mandated education at all?
I mean, my personal belief is I don't think that public education should have been a thing in the first place.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
So this is where I stand.
What we've done is we've outsourced the teaching, right?
I don't think it's the state's role to educate children.
The teachers are the employees of the communities in which they teach. They are essentially employees collectively of the parents to help educate the kids. I mean, when we were living in tribal villages, this was happening differently. But I mean, it's still like this. But Jangles, you consider yourself like who do you consider yourself kind of beholden to? Students, the community?
Yes.
The truth. How about the truth? Wait. How about the truth? Don't lie to kids about the fact that there are gay people or trans people.
But what is the truth? Like, I mean, it was
trans people.
But there's different conceptions of the truth. Like, was it all okay for America to invade Iraq?
There's alternative fact, Brian.
You're saying that transgenderism is real. I'm saying it's not. Those are two opposite things that both can be true.
I know, and one of them is correct.
Yeah, but one of us is right and one of us is wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. Like, it's that simple. There are trans people. They exist. They are observable. I'm right, you're wrong.
Okay. But I can't observe them. They have to self-identify. There's nothing that I can do to observe other than the self-identification.
Use that argument against Mick and his Christianity.
You just explained how you can observe them. They self-identify. You just explained how you observe gay or trans people.
So, but if they change, so somebody could be changing from trans to cis in an instant as just say, identify. Like, this is gender fluid, right? Isn't that what it's supposed to be? I can just sit there and change this. So that's a weird abstraction, though. Like, I can sort of understand that as an adult, but like, man, as a kid, that's going to be really hard to get. Don't you think that might destabilize my worldview of who I am? Why don't I think like that? Why am I not changing? Like, this is weird. Like, this is a tough abstraction for a kid to make. And like, we're talking about basic mental health. All of this is pushing forward. Like, epilepsy at a young age is worse than epilepsy as an adult.
All right, so if you want to talk about actual science, let's talk about actual science. Gender, the conception of gender, that's one of the first social lenses that kids get in the world. Kids have a conception of gender by the time they're 2 or 3. It's a very, very early.
Okay, yeah.
They have a concept of what.
But now you're going to confuse that.
And no, you're not. You're not, because like
your argument is just making it worse.
No, my argument is making it better.
Unnecessarily confusing kids at an age where they shouldn't have to deal with.
No, it's not, because it's more accurate. It's more scientifically informed. All right. So, would you agree that like it is, because I've done more research than you. So, would you agree that like the sexual drive, like sexuality, the sexual drive is based in reproduction, right? Would you agree that?
I think that's its root.
No, I think that's part of it.
Pleasure, like the hunger is based in evolution, but like people eat for pleasure too. It's both.
There's a lot more reasons.
Like the evolutionary reason that we
just
have a sexual drive is primarily for the purpose of reproduction, just like in every other species.
Yeah, probably.
All right, and so you would also agree that in some people that drive is flipped in terms of the wiring, and so that they're attracted to the same gender or multiple genders. In some people, that wiring gets crossed.
Well, I don't.
Right?
That may be purposeful thing too, though. That as a strategy wise, like as a community wise thing, you could have alleles that having a certain amount of people that are gay in a population may be beneficial to the population as a whole.
Okay, well, that's I guess that's sort of agreeing with what my point is. So gender identity is a scientifically observed phenomenon. Like the identification with like, I am a man, I am a woman. And since I am a man, I need to seek out woman and vice versa. That is biologically driven, just like anything else. If it's not biological, what is it? Is it supernatural? Like, so everything, it's based in biology. And because of this, because of the genetic research on transgender identities and like gender identity as a whole, we do know that it is based in genetics. We do know that it's based in biology. And because of that, because children are also biological, we know that some of them do have a gender identity biologically driven.
Didn't you just say it was a social construct?
I said gender. I said gender is a social construct. Like, do you know what a social construct is?
Social construct to me is like gender roles.
Gender roles and all that.
So social construct is assuming that the reason it's essentially that idea where you're a blank slate in it. To simply put it, you're a blank slate, and then the reason that is okay. What's your start with your definition of it?
A social construct is something that would not exist without people. It mostly applies to things like categorizations. Categorizations wouldn't apply without people, but the underlying causes of why we categorize would. So, for example, language is a social construct because it wouldn't exist without humans, but our capacity for language is very much biological. It's a social construct is how humans make use and categorize our biological phenomena.
So different languages are social constructs, is what you're saying.
All languages are social constructs, but that doesn't mean that they're not real. They're very real. They come from the biological centers in our brain, but but the fact that we categorize these certain sounds into certain meanings is a social construct. Social construct doesn't mean not real. Right. Doesn't mean it's imposing on a blank slate. It's how we categorize biological phenomena, because everything a human does is biological.
Okay, but identity and things like this, you can have identity as Batman. You can have identity as an astronaut. You can have identity with your career. You can have identity with your nation or your tribe or your race or your creed or your football team.
That's all that is true. All of those are social constructs, but that doesn't mean they're not meaningful.
Okay, right. But like, what is the point of like wildly confusing things? Like when you talk to a kid, you talk about your identity, like you talk about America or part of the town and these kind of things. Like, but with gender, again, like you're saying, it's base. But to say your gender identity, and if they develop early, and I agree that this does happen. Why try to put the abstraction concept so early? That maybe you could be gender fluid to a 4-year-old. I just think that could destabilize them. That could make them,
so here's the problem.
It could make them worse.
So here's a problem that a lot of people make. Y'all think that it's being taught to kids instead of the other way around. So kids can identify. They can start exhibiting behaviors that are gender nonconforming. They can start identifying with like labels that are gender nonconformity, different than what they were assigned at birth. That can happen without the input of other people.
Yep.
All right, and so what do you do in that scenario? And if we're talking about like parental rights, if a kid shows up to first grade and they identify as transgender, the parents are supportive. How do you reconcile that in the context of the parental rights bill? If you don't say gay,
you just don't talk about it. Like there's no like I don't care if they've changed the religion. If all of a sudden they were Christian and they were wearing a cross, and all of a sudden they come in with the niqab or in a Muslim, like we're not going to sit there and have a class that Timmy switched religions.
Do you have to use pronouns for kids? Like when you talk to kids and about kids in kindergarten, do you use pronouns?
You're going to eventually start to use them, yeah.
Yeah, you call them he.
Do you think that a child has the capability to logically think through that they are actually in fact the other gender? Do you think a young child has that ability?
Logically, it's not really logic, but it wouldn't be logic in either scenario. That's not the question I'm asking though. What do you do? How does the state not impose an ideology on that child? If they show up and they identify as transgender, they want to use this pronoun, and the parents agree with it. That's the.
Why did they show up and identify as transgender, though? That's my question.
Because they are.
Is it because the child came up with that, or is it because the parent or some outside force.
Well, that's an
In your worldview, it wouldn't matter, would it? Parental rights. So what does the state do? How do they not impose an ideology on that child?
When I say parental rights, I don't mean that parents have the right to abuse their children.
Okay.
That's interesting. No, hang on. That's interesting.
Trans people.
Okay, but with the pronouns debate, you could the child could say, okay, these are my pronouns, but now, fine. But then when you're forcing other people then to use those pronouns, though. So the pronouns, I don't have a problem with that. These are my pronouns, but then I do have a problem with now every other kid has to use those pronouns.
I'm curious. What if let's just say like a kid prefers to go by he him pronouns because he's in fact a boy. If I misgendered that boy, would that be okay? Or would we still go with the same? I'm being forced to use.
So why are you?
What do you mean by misgendered?
I mean, if I'm calling him a she and her.
What do you mean by misgendered?
I mean, I'm calling a
that's ideological.
Boy. So wait,
but why?
Respecting that everything's
ideological.
It is.
Why are you doing it to bully?
I mean, it's like that. It's like the point Tim Pool was making to Jack Dorsey and whatever her name is in that old Joe Rogan episode where he's saying the Twitter rules that they have where you can't misgender someone. That's an ideological.
You've admitted that everything is ideological.
Misgendering, according to someone of a different belief, is calling a. Like, let's say there's a person that let's say there's a guy who identifies as a girl and they want to be called a girl. Yeah, misgendering is calling that person a girl because they're in fact not a girl. Does that make sense? So it depends. What lens are we looking at this through?
I'm going to try to help you.
Stop. It was my question. This is my question. Please let me ask my question. Okay, I'm going to just recenter us because wherever we went was in a dumb fuck direction. Wasn't even close to like anything we were talking about. What Brian had offered as a point was that there's some sort of ideological tyranny in forcing people to use or respect other people's pronouns. And I'm asking you, what if a teacher misgendered a cis person? Would they be forced to respect that child's pronouns?
Okay, like if you're going to misgender, again, I would need to know why. Like if you can determine whether something is bullying and whether it's not. Right?
You're right.
Any teacher is allowed
So if a teacher misgenders a child because
if they feel it's bullying, they can call it out. But what reason does that person look that other way? I mean, why is it being called? Why are they doing it in the first place? I would need to know.
Because they don't believe cisgender is a real thing.
So then you'd say, look, we're not going to talk ideology in class. Like I would derail that. Like why?
So you don't need to I don't even agree with that framework.
Should he be forced to use? So what do you believe? Should people be forced to use the correct gender or not?
Okay, should people be forced to use? No, they shouldn't.
They should not. Okay, so then if a teacher wants to misgender a cisgendered student, would you allow that? If you were like in a school, would you allow that?
Okay, they could easily get around and not use pronouns at all. They could communicate you without
not use pronouns.
Yeah, you could absolutely.
Okay. Why even teach pronouns then? Like, fuck, just no pronouns, right? Like,
again, right now you have a person that's in the class that's trying to bully and disrupt. Like, you have one ideological parent. It's probably the parents. Just show me a 5-year-old that is screaming and goes berserk that they don't use the right pronouns. Like, show me that. I haven't seen that. It's maybe the parents.
Show me a teacher that.
I bet parents are like that.
Brian, call a boy a girl exclusively. Like, if you see a little boy, call them a girl. Only refer to them with she, her pronouns. Mm-hmm. Only refer to them as feminine. I wonder, will they be upset?
Why can't you just call the person by the name? Like, I don't say like.
Why can't you just use the pronouns they want?
Why just say
the pronouns they want?
Like, I just don't see why this would be an issue. I just don't see this coming up in
use
in a
your
lot
brain,
of
Brian, because there are trans people in the world who go by different pronouns, and then there are assholes who don't want to call them that.
Okay,
we're coming at it with a totally different presupposition, so we're not going to arrive at the same place.
You're right.
I do not think that there's 5-year-olds that are coming in that are upset and hurt and this and that, and then parents have to do this. I believe that this is said and that teachers want to teach this because they think it's a good thing. Certain people do, and they want to teach the pronouns. I don't think this is a problem. This is like the transgender bathroom things. It actually wasn't a problem. Until like all of a sudden people made it a
nice
problem.
To be cisgender.
What people made it a problem?
The trans people who want to use bathrooms.
I think I actually think it's the other way around. I think that there was a lot of conservative people.
They would just stop using.
I think there are a lot of conservative people that were like, look, generally, I don't remember it being a problem. It all of a sudden was a problem. I'd like it. So they're conservatives that
Why is it a problem
things here. Like conservatives that say Blair White should use the men's bathroom are stupid. That is a stupid
Hell yeah.
point.
Nice.
Okay, Brian, why is it a problem that trans people exist on a fundamental level? Why is that a problem?
Because this is the definition. What I don't know what a trans person is. I don't know if there is such a thing. Like this is an abstraction that I see what you mean by it, but I can't say that it's true.
What is Blair White? What do I call Blair White?
Blair White
You don't
is
know what
a
Blair
transsexual woman.
A transsexual woman. Okay,
Yes.
and if Blair White never transitioned, well, would she just be a man? We should just call her a man?
I think I would say Blair White's a transsexual man. It's a man who is transsexual as a woman. But
I
Blair White is still a man biologically.
What's Blair White's pronouns?
No disrespect to
call
Blair
Sure,
White, by the
right.
way.
No.
So-
What would you call them?
Blair White has said that she feels like a gay man that is living as a woman. That's her words, not mine. It's fine.
Okay.
Buck Angel is the same way. Like, and again, Buck Angel, like, that's a transsexual man.
No. I mean, that's such an odd dynamic. Feeling like a gay man, then why would you present as a woman?
God, it's choice. Why get ear piercings? Like, why get a tattoo?
Do you think
I don't know, like-
over ear piercings?
You could get a ton of tattoos. How is that not body changing? That's
I
wildly body changing.
have to ask both of
Some
you.
analogies are just so bad.
I
No,
have
they're
to-
not. How is a ton of tattoos not permanent body changes?
I
Tell
have
me,
to ask,
you may like them. They may be more socially prevalent, but it is. That's a body change.
all right, I have to ask both of you. Let's say that the communists eventually win, and we secretly, we secretly sneak a bunch of estrogen into your coffee every morning, and you start to develop secondary female characteristics.
Okay.
It's a real. Would you? And this includes me. Would you start to feel distress about the changes that are going on in your body? You start to grow breasts. You start to develop fat deposition that is more female presenting. Would that cause you distress?
Like you might be able to like read a book all the way through without getting distracted by like fantasies about your coworkers.
Okay, well, will it cause you distress? or
Yeah,
not?
that would cause you distress because it's totally unnatural.
Like
And you're being poisoned, essentially. Yes, that would cause you distress.
it would probably cause distress because weird things are happening to you that you don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah,
What's the point of the question?
It would cause me a lot of distress because it doesn't matter what like my chromosomes are. It doesn't matter what my like biological sex is. If I start to present myself in a body that I really am not comfortable with in a gender-oriented way, that would cause me a fuck ton of distress. And I am a gay man, all right? I should be way more comfortable.
Right, but this
identifying
is
as a
true with
girl.
weight gain. But this would also be true if you're a tumor, right?
But you're assuming that that's the same as transgender because my argument is that that's not natural.
No, but there's a difference.
If it's not natural, what is it? If it's not natural, what is it?
It's supernatural.
I already told you what I think about the whole transgender thing.
If
I already
it's not-
answered that question.
I'm sorry,
Do you-
Quinny.
You think you can
I'm
teach
very
cisgendered
stupid.
people to be trans? Like, you sincerely think you can teach cisgendered people to be trans?
I think you can convince gullible people to do a lot of things.
Way to not answer my question. Can you just convince cisgendered people to be trans?
Why not? Why? If you're
Yeah.
gender fluid, you could convince both ways. Yeah.
You can, especially young children, which is why we shouldn't be talking about this in school.
Can you convince them to be gay?
You absolutely could.
Yes.
You could. You could convince somebody to be Muslim and Christian.
Look at the number. Now they're saying 40% of Gen Z apparently all of a sudden identify as LGBT. Do you think that's
No.
because they actually are,
That's
or because they're being
incorrect.
convinced
Oh,
to
that's
be?
incorrect. That's incorrect. And LGBT is like, there's a lot of letters in there. Like,
I
that's
think
not
there's
maybe
a
everybody
lot of
thinks there
people
is.
identifying as non-binary because not here. Like if I'm up against the wall, I'll just say, look, I'm non-binary because nobody can test it. Nobody can do this. I get the check mark. I'm no longer the oppressor. Right? That's what. Why wouldn't I opt out if I'm a kid? I just don't want to. I get the basic.
You join
thing.
the club.
I just check the box.
Do you think that there's, and regardless of whether you agree with it, do you think that there is a significant portion of the population, because Mickey, you've agreed with this, there's a significant portion of the population who genuinely believe that trans people aren't who they say they are? So if we're talking about like
Yes.
the club, yeah, okay, so do you think that they could have an influence on kids? Maybe
I think if they're not, I think it's not bad to have an influence on kids as long as that influence is true. It's not wrong to tell the truth to kids.
I agree.
I mean, even the Bible says, train a child in the way he should go, and when he's older, he won't depart from it. That's what it's talking about. That matters. Those stages matter.
Why are you trying to impose your ideology?
So, like I said, everybody's imposing theirs.
I know, so it's a bad argument. Mick, I want to try to help you. Going forward, don't use it's an ideologically driven thing as an
It literally is, though. That's my whole argument.
Your whole argument is everything is an ideology, which I actually do agree with. So when someone says, like, why is this bad? You can't just say, well, it's because it's ideologically driven. You've contradicted yourself, and that's why this conversation is so frustrating. Either ideology is neutral, it happens no matter what, or ideology is bad and we should avoid teaching it to kids. You can't speak out both sides of your mouth like that. Pick one.
I already said I'm not against teaching from my point of view and from the point of view that's been being taught in this country for a very long time, a more Judeo-Christian ethic in schools, if we're going to do that. I don't think that public schools, number one, should exist in the first place. But if they're going to exist, I believe that they should be taught from that perspective, which they already have been for a long time, up until, a couple decades ago.
How long ago is it? How long ago is not okay for the perspective that our country was founded on to teach the kids? How long ago? What? How long ago? How long ago is like not okay? Like how far back can you go before that's not okay to teach the kids anymore?
What is your question? I'm confused what you're asking.
I'm saying your argument is we've taught this ideology for a long time. So like, what do you mean?
It's what you've been.
Does that mean?
It's what? Yeah. I mean, look at this. We're the most prosperous, amazing country that's ever existed, and I don't think that's by accident.
It's because of World War II.
No, but true. I agree with that. But Jangle's interesting. If it's an ideological war, though, right? And let's say this is an ideological war. Why don't I like the ideological war that maybe we're having here now? Why do we have to do it by proxy through kids, though? Why can't it be talked about here as adults?
Well, because kids are like. Mick's already admitted that like it's good to teach ideology to kids. So like you gotta throw away that argument. There's no way to not teach ideology to kids.
No, my argument is that you can't avoid
at an age. But
good. Yeah, I know. I agree.
Mick is saying,
I agree.
He's not saying we could do this at a senior in high school. I think Mick is saying up to third grade. Like after that, I think what the point is at fourth grade. You could start talking about this. So you're old enough.
I think, especially when you're like teachers are like trying to have these conversations in private with like 5-year-olds. That's just inappropriate. Doesn't matter if you're talking about gay or straight sexuality. It's just inappropriate. I don't think you should be doing it. And I think a lot of parents agree. Most people agree with that. Turns out in this country, there's been surveys already done. So like,
yeah, most people don't know what the fuck they don't.
But that's the problem. Like I remember. During Sesame Street did this thing that they were going to do like in Israel, right? And they had this thing, and they had like a Muslim side of the street with Muslim puppet characters, and then the Jewish side of the street with the Jewish, and then they could go to a park, and then the creators that were trying to create the show, well, then who owns the park? Oh, well, you own this half, we own this half. Like the idea of a public space. The show never happened because the adults were fighting so much about who owned what and the ideological like disputes over territories there that they couldn't make the show for kids. At some point, you're right. The kids are going to take a side one way or the other. But at this Sesame Street age, can't we leave that innocence to where they can at least have that time where they're not thrust into our ideological
Leave it to the parents.
That's what I mean, Jangles. Like,
is that an extreme view? I don't think so.
Is there like in your spawn? Can't we have at least a 5-second spawn? Like, what do they call it?
Let kids be kids for like the short amount of time that they can be.
Let kids be kids. Hell yeah! Let trans kids be trans kids.
What do they call that in the shooters when you have like spawn protection? Can't we? When do you what's the spawn protection? We're saying 8 years old. Like what's your spawn?
What?
Why do you want to pull spawn protection back to 4 years old?
What?
We're talking
because none of you are being consistent.
I have whatever the video game in my head.
You get the analogy, right? Like when you respawn and
I get the analogy.
Yeah,
I get it. None of you are being consistent.
It's a good analogy.
All right,
you have to admit it.
No, here. Okay, so like Mick has admitted that sexual orientation means gay. He's admitted that. Sexual orientation means gay. It doesn't mean straight. So it's okay to teach kids about straight people. But teaching about gay people confuses them. He's admitted that. All right. So
what are we?
This like it's weird to teach.
Like I said, you don't have to teach kids.
You're not teaching health class. I don't know. You're not teaching like the pregnancies and stuff like that in that age. You're waiting.
No,
there's no reason to be taught.
But you're
talking to a second grader about like penetration or sex or like how it happens. Like, that can wait.
Are you aware that a lot of the early? Are you aware that a lot of the early curriculum?
Can I talk? Like, I haven't ever talked yet. Holy fuck.
Early elementary curriculum, it talks about sexual pleasure. A lot of the early curriculum in public schools right now is derived from Alfred Kinsley, the guy who did a bunch of work basically with prison inmates trying to justify homosexuality is this large portion of the population, justifying teaching this at kids. He said that, child abuse is just data points he's collecting and all these different, like, this is where it's coming from. This is what I'm talking about, where it's ideological. There's a darkness behind this that I'm not okay. Can only come from one person. Subjecting kids
ideology
to my
ideology can only come from one person.
Quick question: where in the bill HR H1557 does it prevent trans kids from being trans kids?
Simple. It's
no.
Part of the bill says you cannot talk about. You cannot have classroom instruction. You can't have instruction on gender identity.
I'm going to
quick. You can't have instruction on.
Be right back.
No.
All right, so
instruction in the bill restricts the state's involvement in gender ideology and gender identity.
What is gender ideology? What the fuck does that even mean?
Do you not think that believing gender is a social construct is an ideology?
No, I believe that's pretty well established.
Okay, so who started Gender ideology? Like, who started the gender theory?
Everything's an ideology.
I don't know what that means.
Who was the first one to coin the term gender theory?
I have no idea. Was it a
Simone Dubois, 1919.
Okay.
He came up with a book called Gender Theory. Okay.
So what is gender theory?
None of that existed before her. No one proposed any of this until her.
Yeah, and the term homosexuality was formed in the late 1800s because no one wanted to fuck dudes until
wrong. The term homosexuality was found in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. They actually
the term homosexuality was coined in the late 1800s. I'm correct. You're wrong.
Okay. So anyway, back to my question. Where in the bill does it prevent trans kids from being trans kids?
Because there's a
reasonable instruction on gender identity.
Where is it? I got the bill in front of me.
I have the bill in front of me too. There's a reasonable expectation that as Mick has admitted, gender identity means trans, sexual orientation means gay, and so if a kid shows up and they identify as trans, well, the state, how do they not instruct the students on that?
The bill restricts the state's involvement in that decision.
Brian, so can you even hear me? Holy shit! Hello?
Sorry.
Am I audible?
LSP, go.
Fuck! I've been trying to talk for forever. Brian, do you think literacy tests were designed to discriminate against Black people?
Were literacy tests? I highly doubt. Oh, I mean, they might have been at some point. I don't think in the modern age. No.
They might have been at some point.
You have certainly poll taxes when you had to do certain things to vote.
I don't know how to argue with you. You're just totally ahistorical and you have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're getting at. What are you getting at?
What I'm getting at is that you can make laws that restrict the identities or the actions of others without explicitly naming those people.
Okay, I agree that you can
voting by literacy tests without explicitly.
You could discriminate against a blood type. And it is a way of discriminating against a race.
So
I totally
you understand that, then you understand you can discriminate against gender identity, trans identity, without specifically saying trans.
Correct. But you're going to need to prove to me why you think that they're doing this, right? Like, now, because the people that were discriminating against a blood type
designed to stop lessons like Sally has two moms.
No, it doesn't.
But their argument is coming from a defensive.
Yeah, it does. That was the explicit intention by the author, by the sponsor of the bill.
Wrong.
Correct.
Wrong.
Okay, correct. I'm right. You're wrong. Sorry.
But we're talking about intentions here, so it's a little tougher to get at. But like the intentions that I think they're saying is like that at some point, yes, you're going to teach kids about all this stuff. Kids are going to have to learn about war and scary concepts like that. But to preserve childhood innocence, at least up to 8. That was the point.
Hold on.
I understand.
Learning about gay or trans people is so corrupting. I don't understand. What's corrupting about that? What's going to happen to the gay or trans people? I'm sorry. What's going to happen to the kids when they learn about gay or trans people? That's going to corrupt them.
Again, when you're doing, there's a lot of things that don't corrupt, but if you do it earlier, they do. Again, is sex good? Like for adults, this is good, but nobody thinks that like 2-year-olds having sex is a good idea.
I'm throwing out everything you said until you answer my question. What's corrupting about teaching that gay or trans people exist? How is that going to corrupt kids?
Because when you're learning things, you're learning.
They're not merely just teaching that they exist.
When you're teaching transgender,
they are.
right?
Not an accurate framework.
This is way too big of an abstraction to make at that age, and it's going to. I think
Brian,
confusion.
You're talking in circles. It's an abstraction. What the fuck does that mean? How is it corrupting? What specifically is going to happen? What is specifically the corrupting action?
What is the corrupting action if you shake a baby, right? Like you could potentially
they die, Brian.
Okay,
so what's going to happen when you teach gay or trans people?
Yes. What happens if you're playing loud music, right? That you can disrupt people. Like creating confusion over what you say are base gender identities that onset early, and I agree. But when you start to talk about gender fluid at 4, this is going to undermine that. When they don't have a basis, at some point by 4th grade, they should have a solid basis for this, and then can learn that things are complex, people are different, some people identify the opposite gender. That's fine. You have the basis, but doing this too early, I don't get it. Why do you want to confuse people?
Well,
Why
you
don't
just
you want
you
them
just
to have
asked
the same conception that you do, Michael.
You ask, talk about wanting to impose your views on people. Here we go.
But no, but I don't even think it's going to work. I think that what Michael...
No, I don't mean you, Brian.
Michael learned it the way I did. And now we disagree, but I think, Michael, you're actually not going to get what you want from this. You're going to...
This is what I'm
getting like dumbass ansers when I ask.
Why is it wrong to teach that trans and gay people exist? What is trans? Do they?
Can I talk without being interrupted?
Let Michael drop.
Jesus fuck, man. This is like the 5th time this happened. So what I'm expecting from you, Brian, is when you say that it is corrupting to teach about gay or trans people to kids, I want specifically how they're going to be corrupted and what's going to corrupt.
It's not okay. That's a wrong word to use. The confused.
The word
is
you
the correct
use, Brian.
Confused.
It's school. They're gonna be confused. You explain it to them, Brian.
Okay. Because
why at 4 years old?
Again, you don't sit there and talk about like 4th year medical student stuff to a freshman in high school.
All right.
They're 7. But hold on, quick question.
Veracity? No, the veracity. I have to prove that you're fucking wrong about what this bill is. So,
it's about gender. It's about introducing gender Marxism to children at the end of the day. People on the other side of
of course, the gender Marxism, everything's Marxism.
Hey, Jangles,
at a Senate hearing on Tuesday, Republican Senator Travis Hudson gave the example of a math problem that includes the details that Sally has 2 moms or Johnny has 2 dads. Republican State Senator Dennis Baxley, who sponsors the bill in the Senate, says that this is exactly what the bill aims to prevent.
Okay.
I am correct. You are wrong. I literally just gave it to you. It's from you want me to put it in the chat?
What you did was you gave me a news article. I'm asking you in the bill. Because I have the bill in front of me.
Brian,
there's no such thing scientifically as a trans kid. There's no such thing as more than 2 genders scientifically, biologically. Why would you teach kids lies?
No, hold on.
We shouldn't be teaching kids lies at any age, especially when they're 5 years old.
I've been saying Brian, it's Veracity I'm talking to. Holy shit, have I been confusing all this?
Hold on, let me finish my statement first.
I've been in the middle of a game, I'm sorry.
You instead pointed to a Time article instead of what I asked, which was in the bill. Go to page 4 of the bill, line 97. And read it out loud for everybody because it explicitly states classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur
in kindergarten through grade 3.
How is saying Sally has 2 moms a classroom instruction on gender ideology or sexual orientation?
Because as Mick was so...
That's not an instruction.
Hold on, because as Mick was so...
Veracity. Do you know what courts do when they can't interpret a law?
Yes.
They defer to the lawmakers.
Yes.
Okay. This would be called unconstitutionally vague because nobody knows what age appropriate is, sexual orientation is, or gender identity. Okay. Then what?
No, it's not. It's very, very specific.
So let me ask you: if I do a math problem where Sally has 2 moms, you're saying under this bill that would be allowed? Would that be allowed?
Read the fucking bill. Just read.
I read the bill. Would that be allowed? You're the lawyer here. Tell me, would that be allowed?
Yes, it will, because it's not a classroom instruction by school personnel about sexual orientation or gender identity.
Okay. So one of the sponsors of the bill who explicitly disagrees with you is wrong.
Okay, I got a question. Do you think politicians read all the bills they sign?
Probably fucking not, but that has
and
nothing
remember,
to do with
Obama said that you can keep your doctor. So
yeah,
oh my fucking god, how abstract you have to get. Nick has helpfully admitted that sexual orientation means gay. That he has helpfully admitted that.
Right, but
and one of the sponsors of the bill agrees with me.
Just because a person is pushing a bill like Obama said you can keep your doctor does not necessarily mean he's correct.
That's why I asked a very specific question of where in the bill, because what you're doing right now is conjecture. You're pointing to other people that may or may not have read the bill. We can
a sponsor of the bill.
Hold on.
Obama pushed Obamacare. Obama pushed Obamacare.
A sponsor of the like this is what the bill is designed to represent. This is what he wants with this bill.
Jangles. Did you sponsor? Like, do you believe in Biden's tax bill? I know this is. Do you believe in his tax bill?
Do I believe in his tax bill? I don't fucking know.
Tax plan?
I don't fucking know. I haven't read it. I've read this bill and I've read what the sponsors say about this bill, and you're wrong.
No, hold on.
No, quit grasping for straws. You're incorrect. I'm sorry. Admit it.
I'm not grasping for straws, Jangles. What you're doing is you're getting backed into a corner because I asked you for a
I'm getting backed into a corner by proving you wrong very easily?
By a Time article instead of the actual bill.
A Time article referencing what actual senators said.
Wait. Okay, wait. Fine.
Wait, somebody can misunderstand. Even a senator can misunderstand.
Stop. We're having the dumbest debate, please. Okay, if this bill does not prohibit classroom instruction, I'm sorry, prohibit lessons like Sally has two moms, what does it stop? What specifically is it going to stop?
All it stops is that teachers are talking about sexual orientation specifically, meaning, let's say a kid says, I'm thinking about not being straight anymore. The teacher cannot act upon that statement without parental consent or after grade 3.
Okay,
Nick,
if I wanted to do a lesson at my school on Harvey Milk,
with what he said, that teachers should not?
That has nothing to do with gender identity. Harvey Milk did something else other than be gay, dude.
It has to do with sexual orientation. So I'm asking, would I be allowed to do a lesson on Harvey Milk in a school?
In third grade?
Why can't they wait in third grade?
Where they start learning social studies in third grade. Yes.
Okay, then let's show them Saving Private Ryan. Come on.
Fucking show them pornography too. Like, these are dumbass points. Come up with a better argument.
No, that's not. It's actually a perfect analogous argument.
Do you think learning about Harvey Milk is as viscerally disgusting as Saving Private Ryan?
No. What I'm saying,
it's not analogous.
If we do a biography of his life,
it's 100% analogous. I'm going to tell you why. Because the Harvey Milk story, just like Saving Private Ryan's story, is an extremely nuanced and complex topic that requires a level of understanding of the complexity of life.
That's true.
How can you think that a third grader who thinks that Batman is real understands the complexity of gender?
How are you all not embarrassed with the arguments that you're making?
How is that embarrassing?
Why is all you guys can do is straw man?
That's a really good point.
All you can do is verbally attack people.
How is that a straw man? Explain to me how that's a straw man.
That's amazing.
Explain to me how that's a straw man.
Let me ask. Would it be confusing or traumatizing to teach about Martin Luther King and civil rights as well at third grade?
Yeah. So they don't understand the complexities of all of it.
You're going to
grade, they're 8 years old.
It disturbs innocence. I agree with veracity.
It disturbs innocence.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
Should we teach about the founding of America in any way, shape, or form to kindergarten?
Yes, but you're going to talk about the bad parts
Not until the 6th or 7th grade, we shouldn't be teaching about American history.
You're right. We shouldn't teach about the bad parts. That's why you teach them about people like Harvey Milk and Martin Luther King. That's the good parts of history.
But I would say the same thing for the French and the West Africans and anybody else. You don't freak your kids out. How is this helping?
Even movies are rated PG, PG-13. There's categories that exist as far as what's appropriate for children and what's not. And y'all are saying why is this hard to understand?
All right, I got a question. Nick, I want you to answer this.
It's hard to understand for me.
Mick, I want you to answer
what, Jangles? What?
Under this bill, do you think a math problem, let me read it again. A math problem that includes the details, Sally has two moms. Do you think that under the Florida bill, do you think that ought to be excluded under the letter of the bill?
Do I think that it should be excluded under the letter of the bill?
Right. Do you think that this bill reasonably excludes a math problem with the details that Sally has 2 moms?
Yes.
Cool. Veracity. Fight with him. Y'all disagree.
Sure.
Who's right?
I can disagree with them.
I need a link to the bill. Who's got a link to the bill?
I have a link. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send it in the chat. Put it in the chat.
Yeah, and go to page 4, line 97. It makes explicit instructions. The rest of the bill is about parents.
Because there's more implied under that you're just completely ignoring. That's
what's implied is
I got this.
What's implied is Sally is married to John. Doesn't imply sexual orientation. Sally's implied to Deborah. That does imply sexual orientation. That's what's implied by both of you here.
Why are you even saying Sally has 2 moms?
Because it was brought up by a fucking senator who sponsored the bill.
But that doesn't.
This is not irrelevant.
Where in the bill does it say it? Until you point to me where in the bill it says it, I can't take you seriously because you didn't read the bill.
Sweet. All right. The bill doesn't say grooming either, does it? It has nothing to do with grooming. The bill doesn't say sexual activity either. It has nothing to do with sexual activity. The bill doesn't actually contain the word sex. It has nothing to do with sex. Is that the argument you want to go with?
Are you done?
Yeah, am I done?
I've watched
very easily dismantling your arguments,
and you always do this. When someone presses you on one single issue, you can't answer it. So then you start to deflect in all sorts of ways. Just admit it. You're wrong. You didn't read the bill. You were wrong.
I legitimately disconnected the last 10 seconds. I did not hear. I'm sorry.
I've watched multiple debates with you before. I've watched you with Adam. I've watched you with Stitch. I've watched you all over the time, even with AJW. I watch you guys all the time. You always do this. When someone presses you about something, you don't have an answer. You deflect. I ask you for where in the bill does it do that? And then you point to this imaginary, also, it could do this.
Imaginary.
Or you point to a Time article of a guy who may or may not have read the bill.
So when
I point may or may not, you don't know.
Because when it says, because the interpretation of it is incredibly vague. Right.
That's not vague at all.
No. It is very vague in classroom instruction on sexual orientation. Now, this bill,
it's vague enough that 2 of you are on the same side or disagreeing about what it means. It's vague.
Yeah,
it's not vague at all.
So why are you two disagreeing?
Then hash out your disagreements, because apparently it's vague enough that you two are having disagreements on what it means.
Yeah, with Mick, y'all hash out your disagreements.
What's his problem? Oh, that's right. You disagree with the fact that to Sally mom, right? Is that the disagreement?
But I don't know if his agreement is that whether or not the legality of it or the morality of it or what it.
Brian, don't save him. Mick
actually,
explicitly agreed.
What Black Pill's disagreement was that he believes that the state shouldn't be involved in this matter.
Mick, did you?
No,
did you not explicitly say that under this law, Sally has 2 moms would fall under this law and you couldn't teach it to kids?
He didn't read
under this specific law.
He even admitted that he didn't read it. He said it earlier. He didn't read the bill.
I did. I never said I didn't read the bill earlier.
I thought you said you didn't read the bill.
No.
Well,
I did. I read it through once, a couple weeks ago.
If you go to page 4, line 97, it explicitly states that it's not vague. We all know what gender identity is. We all know what sexual orientation is.
No, we don't.
Come on now.
Yeah, here it is. Classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 in a manner that is not age appropriate or development appropriate for.
Nowhere does it say that
in accordance with the state standards.
Yeah, no, it doesn't say.
I'm curious. If we all know what gender identity is, what's the issue with teaching it? I'm sorry, how do we teach pronouns without teaching it?
Why teach pronouns in K through 3?
Are you
serious?
I'm actually serious. Why would you teach?
Why teach reading at that age?
No.
I'm dumbfounded by your own stupidity.
If this is you don't need to teach people pronouns from K through 3. You don't.
Dog, do you know what a pronoun is?
Oh my God.
What is
teaching people?
Do you know what a pronoun is?
What do you mean? Again, what do you mean by teaching pronouns?
So wait, you want to teach kids
him, she, her?
Oh, she, her. What about Caesar? Hold on. What about Caesar? They, them.
Other kids. What about demon? What about
you guys?
Are we going to teach demon pronouns?
You guys are being ignorant to the fact that there is. Whether you want to mock me for saying this all you want, but there is an ideology behind this that is not so friendly, that is destructive, that they're purposely trying to impose on young impressionable children. That's happening. That's
always
happening.
an ideology. Everything's an ideology.
Wait, can I
right?
get like an elaboration on the? I'm still curious about the pronoun thing. Like, how do I? So we just shouldn't teach kids pronouns in schools
from K through 3? No.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, which one?
Teach them he, him, and she, her.
Teach what? Teach what pronouns? To
what
who?
About the 79
how? By what standard?
She, her.
So
I can't believe this is real.
What about the other 79 genders? Do you teach them their pronouns too?
How about just he and she? Those are pronouns, right?
Are you denying the lived experience of all those other people?
I think what you guys are implying is should we be able to teach kids that there's more than just 2 genders? No, because that's not true.
We shouldn't teach pronouns. But also he and she, and I'm going to run from the answer because my answer is incoherent.
I don't think we should teach kids things that are lies on purpose.
Do you think pronouns are lies?
That are ideologically.
The pronouns are lies. Pronouns are lies.
You get my point?
No, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay.
So I should not teach somebody he, him, she, her as pronouns in kindergarten through 3rd grade when I'm teaching English language or how to read.
So what is the
pronouns?
Somebody explain to me the damage to kids if they say, "Look, I want to use "zer" pronoun." Explain to me the damage to a kid that we're talking in this is prior to 3rd grade. The damage of not using the pronoun.
What? The damage of not using "zer"?
Oh, well, if the 5-year-old says my pronouns are "zer," I need you to use them. Explain to me the damage of not
pronouns.
Explain to me the damage if I don't.
No,
they might be like upset. I don't know. So their social emotional well-being is going to be harmed
because
by it?
Because if you hold on,
it doesn't exist. That's the whole thing.
But what I'm saying is their social emotional well-being is going to be disturbed by confusing and making this complicated because they don't have the faculties to do it yet. Why do you rule out my argument when I have to accept yours?
Brian, here's the argument. Because to not use that pronoun is to impose a state-sponsored ideology on that kid.
So yours is a principle. It's not from a child.
So yours isn't?
So yours is no, but that's fine. If Jangles wants to do a principled argument, his is a principled thing. But Michael's coming from the point of kids' health, and that's where I am. I think this is damaging. He's saying it's damaging if we don't. Whereas Jangles seems to be more of an ideological neutral argument.
My argument comes primarily from y'all being consistent, which you have not been at any point during this conversation. Truthfully, I don't know the research. I haven't done the research on those things, and I base my opinions on the research.
Oh my God. Half the research you point to are like.
Do you think that there's more than 2 genders?
I don't give a fuck.
There's at least 3.
Do you think that kid should be okay? Do you think there's at least 3?
Yeah,
this is again where where people like myself would completely disagree, and I would say that that's not true. That's absolutely not true. No, we shouldn't teach that to kids.
What's the third? Just quick, tell me. What's
non-binary? We'll just stick with non-binary.
Okay. So
because there's non-binary people, they exist, they're observable. So there's at least 3 genders.
Wait, how
you say that's made up? All genders are made up.
That's
okay. Okay, fine. As soon as we introduce non-binary, we do undermine the concept of gender, which Jangles just kind of informed me, and I believe him, that gender identity starts to root early, and it's one of the earliest things that kids can grasp onto. Non-binary, how does that not undermine what Jangles said?
Okay.
You like if Jangles is right, and I think he is, that kids do latch onto this right early.
I don't understand your argument of like you're trying to use my argument to contradict him, but it doesn't.
How? But like, okay, if gender identity is something we grab onto early, we agree there. But the thing is, maybe your idea of gender identity is like, do you think that a 2-year-old could know if he's a boy or girl?
Yes, because it's literally the first social. No,
is a 2-year-old? Can a 2-year-old know he's non-binary?
I don't fucking know, dude.
Come on. Well, if they can know boy or girl, why is it non-binary obvious?
You're such a slimy fuck.
That's what I'm saying. The non-binary, the Zer, like that stuff, they have to be told. They have to be taught. You don't have to teach a kid that he's a boy. You have to teach a kid that he's a girl.
He, him, and she, her too.
Exactly the same as he.
That doesn't mean that you have to. You're conflating the language used to describe what they are versus what they actually are.
You can't have a consistent argument to save your life, can you? It's bad to teach them this. Oh, but we have to teach them this.
But what? No, but why isn't it? Like
to teach kids what
Jangle, like that early on you could be a boy or a girl. We both agree that a 2-year-old girl can know as a girl. But I want to know: is there a 2-year-old that knows that they're non-binary? And if so, why not? And if so, why?
Hold on. Do you think when I say that we have a conception of gender
because non-binary is a little bit more complicated to peg down than boy or girl?
Okay. Okay. So we do agree then there is age appropriateness then for this.
No, we don't. Just because something's
obviously there is.
It's not age appropriate.
Okay. If you can't, if a 2-year-old is not smart enough to understand the concept, then it's not age appropriate.
Do you think a 2-year-old?
By definition.
When I say that that 2-year-olds, because gender identity, a concept of gender, if you don't want to view it through a trans lens, a concept of gender is known by children as their first social lens by the time they're 2 or 3 years old. Do you think what I mean by that is they can accurately describe the nuances of their gender identity?
No, but you. What
do you mean by gender identity?
But you said they know that they're a boy and a girl, right? Okay, I agree.
No, I didn't.
How do you know that you're non-binary, and what age do you need to be to understand that you're non-binary?
Let me explain it to you again. When I say this is true. All of you would agree with this. All right. If we divorce it from a trans ideology lens, if you want to call it that kids develop a sense of gender. They develop a sense of boy, girl, and everything in between by 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that a 2-year-old is going to be able to tell you, well, I'm a boy, and here's what that means.
Okay, but they have a basic. Why isn't there an example of a 2-year-old that has a base identity of non-binary?
I guess you'd have to ask them, get them to write it down.
But how do we
the most basic understanding of a child being able to understand gender is something
binary.
Like, oh, I have this thing in between my legs and that person doesn't. We're different. Now what they're wanting to do is at that young age confuse kids and be like, oh, actually, if you have this, you could be that, and you could be anything in between. You could be all these different things, and that's the stuff that's imposed on children.
Jangles is right. Like it is the basis of this is the binary though. Like the non-binary is the abstraction, and I agree. Like we can abstract, but again, every time you abstract, you have to go to ages. So we agree that there is age appropriate. Now we just have to figure out where is the age appropriate? And this law is saying, look, at 8, you have the fundamental, like basic abstractive capabilities to understand all this without derailing it. Because if you start this stuff at 2, I think we all agree, if we start this stuff at 2, it's going to get weird.
If we start any education at 2.
Right, I go. So good.
All right, hold on. I got to ask you. Math is confusing to kids.
We all
That's
agree.
Very confusing.
Yes.
Should we not teach math? It's okay to confuse
but we don't.
kids. That's the point of learning.
Okay, but you do not introduce imaginary numbers to kids until you do real numbers, right? Integers. You don't in algebra. You have the concept of I, right? The square root of -1.
All right, I agree with
that's
you.
an abstract concept.
That's
not appropriate for first grade.
You know what? You've convinced me. We shouldn't be introducing college level courses on gender ideology to 2-year-olds. You've convinced me.
Okay, but honestly, where at what point? How old do you have to be to have the abstraction to get non-binary?
As soon as they're old enough to ask.
In your opinion? Oh, okay.
Do you think that's?
That's fine. I'm not trying to be antagonistic, Jangles. I'm not.
But fuck you anyway.
What age do you think that is? What's the earliest you've seen that or known or like that? What in your opinion? I
would not be surprised if. Well, I would assume there are many trans people who identify as non-binary now that might not have understood what they were at that age, but it still felt it.
Sure,
they might not have the words to articulate it, but that's a very real possibility.
Yes.
Yeah, there are kids.
But so for the kid that doesn't quite have the words and the power to articulate it, don't you think that person? That kid is super susceptible to adults leading them in one direction or the other.
Yeah,
yes,
but
absolutely. Wait, no, can I answer?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. They are absolutely susceptible to that, which is why you give them all the information available. Right, it's why you don't let adults or their parents say some stupid shit like "there's only 2 genders," like fucking retard here, and you give them the information they need.
We're really close. We're actually really close, Michael. I just think that instead of all, it's none. Because I agree that they're also susceptible. You could do a radical Christian conservative thing at this age and really route them and do some crazy stuff there too, right? But you could, why not none? Why? I agree that, okay, so you're saying all. Why not none and wait?
I'm not, I'm not clear what you're asking.
Like, so you're saying, like, we both agree that a person that has developed a gender identity but doesn't have the words to express it, say a 4-year-old, is in a very susceptible, they could be easily led by adults. You say teach it all. I say don't teach anything.
The reason you teach it all is because it grows people's understanding of what they might be experiencing, right?
Why couldn't it just confuse the shit out of them?
Brian,
kids don't have the capability to like, put all these different options on the table and then actually reason through it.
Can I? Jesus fuck! I barely talk for this whole thing. I just keep getting yelled over. Can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The reason it's all is because it best informs the kid of what they might be going through if they are somebody who's questioning their gender. Yeah, it'll confuse the fuck out of them. Hey, having any gender is confusing as fuck. Everybody, the act of going through puberty is confusing as fuck. Reconciling with your gender roles is a confusing process in all of society, especially if you're trans. That's why you don't hide it with them. You give them the maximum amount of information so that they can best understand what they might be going through. And you can also it also explains to their peers what other people might be going through, so they're not ignorant.
Okay, so what you're saying is I'm willing to sacrifice confusion to get to what you think is like more accurately the truth. Is that what you're saying? Do you
think there's no way you can explain what trans or gay is?
No, that's a fine argument. I just think it's a trade-off. You're willing to sacrifice speed for handling, and I want more handling and less speed.
Brian, do you think there's a way to teach kids what trans or gay is without confusing them?
Yes, at a certain age.
You can't teach them that at 6, 7?
I 4th grade I think is reasonable. That's reasonable. Yeah, like at that point you can.
So at 4th grade you would have no problem if they started teaching what gay or trans people were?
Yeah, that's you should be able to handle it by then.
Okay.
Yeah.
But 3rd grade and under, that's too confusing.
It can be, yeah. I'm worried about the damage. Like, oh, come on. Like, if we're going to jack up the speed limits, if I said, let's just change the speed limits to 110, are you going to be totally cool with that? Well, everyone's going to get there faster. Are you a little worried that we're going to have a lot of accidents? I'm concerned.
What I'm worried about is
unintended effects. You don't seem to be concerned about that.
No, what I'm worried about is suicidality, right? From a population that is exceptionally vulnerable, that has a history of discrimination, who has very high rates of suicidality, having experiences, public experiences, history, and identity all hidden from them.
Okay, no, but this is also co-leaned with drug use and all of that. So I think that, yes, while it does map with trans, it also maps with drug use. It also maps with a lot of other depression and other things. So are we blaming that? Like, don't you think a depressed person is more likely to be gender confused than a non-depressed person?
No, I think a gender confused person is more likely to be depressed.
Really?
Yeah, the reverse. Why? And you know why? It's because
do you think anorexia would correlate with depression?
These all correlate, but the reason gender identity, because of the way society treats gay and trans people. That's why it correlates.
Yeah, you got the chicken and egg backwards here. You're saying depression causes gender dysphoria, not the other way around.
Well, I'm saying that if you're depressed, if I'm depressed, I'm going back to like I'm 13, I'm depressed, I don't have a lot of friends, right? And I'm trying to figure out why. Like, and somebody says to me that maybe you're the wrong gender. Would I feel that? I might. Like, seriously, I'm looking for comfort. I'm looking for like understanding, and I'm a 13-year-old. Like, why couldn't I maybe be subdued by that when that wasn't appropriate? Maybe because they got me when I was depressed state, but by 15 or whatever, I wasn't depressed. I wouldn't have entertained the argument. What I'm saying is, wouldn't depression and the feeling of belonging influences? Plus, the trans community is very inclusive, right? So all of a sudden, all these people like you, join us, and they're nice to you. For the first time, you've got friends. Maybe you're just depressed. Like, couldn't we confuse a person?
Do you think that depression is a single variable?
No, of course not.
Like, okay, cool. So you can't just propose anything to a person and say this will cure your depression.
But I'm saying a certain amount of depressed people might get confused by this, right? So, like, what I'm saying is, I agree that trans suicides are higher. I would agree when you say 5x or whatever it is. But why? Like,
I don't believe it's because they're alienated from society.
Then you're incorrect.
If we just accept them, as you guys are saying, then that'll all of a sudden cure the depression. I don't think that's true.
Why do you think trans people kill themselves?
Why do you think they don't kill, or why do I think they kill themselves? I think there could be a ton of reasons.
The way people treat them, why do they do it?
I don't think it's merely because of the way people treat them.
Notice how you just qualify the word merely there?
There's not just it's not just a monolithic solution here.
Right. I don't think that you could just be
so
depressed.
What's your solution?
You could be depressed because you're not
tell them the truth to start.
Brian, make Mick answer this. Make Mick answer this. If you don't have the reason, why do you know this isn't the reason?
That people kill themselves just because society doesn't accept them? Because the data doesn't show that that's the case.
It absolutely does. Every single.
We've never been more accepting of trans people ever, and the suicide rates are not going down.
They are. Every single study shows that trans affirmation.
You said that depression is not a single variable. So why would it be with trans people?
Because transitioning is there to alleviate gender dysphoria. You know that that trans people have lives outside of that, right?
Of course.
Plenty of cis people have depression, and every reason that a cis person has depression, trans people can have that independently of them having gender dysphoria. Sure. When we are focusing on the variable that transitioning is supposed to alleviate, it does alleviate gender dysphoria. And every study, every single one of them, it has shown to have favorable effects.
Send me the studies.
Sure.
Here you go. Yep. I have 55
studies done by who?
By 55 different authors.
But are they
55 different separate studies.
I agree. But what's the metric? Is the metric metric has to be self-reporting, right? How can I measure? I can measure your insulin levels, right, with the blood test. But the only way I can measure your gender dysphoria levels is through self-report, right?
Okay, cool. How do you measure suicidality? I want you to tell me.
That's a good one. Why I can measure suicides, right? When you get dead bodies, you can measure.
We can measure suicides. How do we measure suicidality? I mean, if they commit suicide, we can't treat them, right? They're done. How do we measure suicidality?
I'm not sure. How did they do it?
By asking them.
No, but there has to be some metric, right?
By asking them with a verified
there's pain tests
scale.
For back pain. They have these very, very complex.
You know what?
You know how they diagnose it.
Right.
So do you know how pain tests work? Do you know how pain tests work? They have
the same thing for gender dysphoria, right? They probably have a specific scientific test.
No,
right?
yeah, they ask. There is no objective measurement for pain. It's all subjective. You just ask them.
No, it's not.
No, it is. I'm very certain of this. This is my field. There's no objective measurement for pain. You just ask people, and you try to verify it. You have a verified a measurement there, but a valid measurement. But it's still, you have to ask people what their pain levels are.
You don't think that there's more scientific ways to just say, remember how you do in the hospital 1 through 10?
Yeah,
right?
No,
there has to be something more complicated than that too, and it
can be more complicated, but it's always subjective.
There's one for back pain, and I can't remember what it is. Right?
Yeah, I do know what it is.
But we want to reduce subjectivity. Right? No, we want to reduce subjectivity.
You can reduce subjectivity, but it cannot be objective. Pain is 100% subjective, and it's verified. That's how we have to do science, because that's all we can do. There's no objective measure. There's no dipstick. There's no blood test you can make for pain. It doesn't work like that. You can't even measure neurological activity in terms of measuring pain, because people are going to perceive different neurological signals differently. The same thing happens with all mental health statistics.
Well, could you run an emotional pain tolerance study, and then overlay that against gender identity?
Yeah, and all that's going to be subjective.
That would be interesting to see, don't you think?
That would be great. Yeah, and just because something is subjective doesn't mean it's a willy-nilly. It doesn't mean it's a complete guess. We can verify. We can have valid.
I agree, but what I'm saying is you could also want, right? So part of it, let's say I'm on HRT and I'm 17 or whatever, and I want to be accepted. I could be saying, well, I feel a little bit better, but part of it might be on the hope that it does get better. How do you distinguish I feel better as opposed to I feel a tiny bit better, but I want to put it up because of hope.
Well, here's the fucked up thing about all mental health. How the patient feels is the statistic. That is the measurement. Nothing else matters outside of that in terms of mental health.
Okay.
The patient's subjective interpretation of their own feeling, that is how you measure mental health.
Okay, fair.
You can't get better than that.
Good. But do you think that peer pressure could be artifact in actually getting to disturbing the truth?
Peer pressure is
rapid onset gender dysphoria? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, peer pressure. If I'm doing these self-reporting studies, and you're right, Jangles is right that yes, it the only really way to do it is surveys. But artifact, peer pressure. Like, for example, if you did a survey, how do you figure out how many people someone's had sex with, right? The only thing you can do is survey. There's no way to, unless we've all got IDs and shit, you can't figure that out. But like, don't you think peer pressure might have women reporting less and men reporting more?
Yeah, 100%. That's why men report a lot more sexual partners.
Yeah, right. But why wouldn't this affect trans to some degree of peer pressure, especially in-group peer pressure or out-group peer pressure?
It could affect them very much so, but it's going to affect them in all directions. It's not going to just affect them to like identify as trans. It's also going to subvert and suppress trans identities, right?
But so what I'm saying is this is all artifact and this is all fog of war for us to actually get at the truth.
I want the conversation to be about this, to be about the nuances of like how people identify. But we're so far removed from that because we have people who think that trans people don't exist. I would love to get to the nuances of this.
What do you think they mean when they say trans person doesn't exist? What do you take that to mean?
That is,
I believe gender dysphoria exists. I said that at the beginning of this episode.
Okay, so you believe gender dysphoria exists. What do you think is the best way to treat people with gender dysphoria?
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I have a lot of studies here. Would you, if I presented you scientific evidence to say that gender affirmation, like treatments, social transitioning, up to puberty blockers, up to hormonal treatments, depending on the age, if I presented you with evidence to say that this is the best way to treat gender dysphoria, would you support it?
Puberty blockers for kids?
Yeah, scientific evidence on all of those. Would you support?
You would have to have what the evidence?
You'd have to really show a lot of evidence.
If 100% you agreed that the scientific evidence said all these
I don't think it's if there was evidence that solved the gender dysphoria in children to give them puberty blockers, would I support giving them puberty blockers?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so stop pretending you care about science. It's not a scientific question. It's not an evidence question.
But no,
and I know that's not that's I don't believe that's the case.
No, but there's an ethical question.
But that wasn't the hypothetical. No, that wasn't. I know it is ethical. That wasn't the hypothetical. All right. So when you pretend to care about evidence and then say like if all the evidence,
well, there's more things that matter for a child than whether or not they have gender dysphoria at that stage of their
admit your opposition
upbringing.
is ideological, not scientific. I'm fine with that. Admit that.
That's what I said in the beginning that you made fun of me for.
So why did you bring up science?
What are you talking?
If science doesn't matter, why would you bring it up?
I never said it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. I said your opinion.
The ideology that's going into essentially like what he was talking, the social pressure to spike LGBTQ trans kid whatever data, which is what's happening. That is what I disagree with. So I don't think that people should be pressured into something that's not necessarily true. Like gender dysphoria exists. Yes, it's extremely rare. It's not whatever percent they're saying it is now. Okay,
they're saying
giving kids puberty blockers is giving them the same drug that you give, like, I don't know, a serial rapist if you're trying to chemically sterilize them.
Fuck. All right. So
it's literally the same drug. I had a study. I was reading.
So I'm trying to help you. When you're making these arguments, start with the ideological one. All right. When I ask you, like, when you're talking about studies, you don't actually care what the results are because your framework is ideological, and that's fine. You can start there. All right. You can start there and have an ideological bias and say that no, that these treatments shouldn't be available. You can start there, but don't then pretend to care about what the evidence
says. But there's an ethics part of this too, Django.
I know, and that's what I'm saying.
Said, look,
that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing.
Genetically
that's what I'm trying to say is there's more than just the scientific data. Ethics matter as well.
But the science doesn't matter to you. It's just ethics, and that's fine. Admit that. I'm trying to help you. If ethics is what you're concerned about, start.
Number one, I just frankly don't believe that the data. I don't believe that chemically castrating kids is solving gender dysphoria. I don't believe that.
Okay,
I just don't believe that.
Then let's clarify this, Mick. If this is hypothetical, if data suggested that
I'm not taking your word for that, is my point.
Nobody cares. So, Mick, if the data says this, would you drop your position and agree with the data?
You're talking about the world of hypotheticals.
Yes, and I'm asking you to engage with a hypothetical.
This is pointless. This is a pointless conversation in the world of hypotheticals.
It's to demonstrate that you actually care about the science.
Well, no, but why? Tell me why.
I don't care about science that's hypothetical that doesn't exist. No, I don't care about that.
You actually have no spine. You are a jellyfish, sir.
Okay, I can show you what this is supposed to look like from someone with a spine. If all of the data pointed to puberty blockers being harmful, not fixing gender dysphoria. If all the data pointed to social affirmation against like the well-being of trans kids, like it doesn't help them at all, I would be against it because I care what the data says because I want happy kids.
But Jangles,
that's how you're consistent.
Okay, but what if I showed you data that if we split schools by gender and everybody does 30% better, do we want to then just segregate schools by gender?
Then I would acknowledge.
There's ethical concerns too.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Well, one, you should be able to like identify with what I just said, right?
What I'm saying is that yes, that you could be right, Jangles, that you do return to just dysphoria, but that's not the only thing on the table. Just like when Fauci says, "Look, we need to reduce the virus, let's all lock down." There's more things on than just infection rates.
Is there no acknowledgement
and a lot of other things?
Two things. One, is there no acknowledgement that if the data changed, I would change my position? No acknowledgement.
In hypothetical land,
I'm great.
In 100% hypothetical land, if that's how reality was, then sure.
I just want to know why.
My point is we're not in that world. That's my point. Is we're not in hypothetical land.
Sent you.
There's reality studies. That exists.
I sent you 60 studies. Would you like to look at them?
Send me. Yeah, sure.
It's in the whereby chat. I can put it in the YouTube chat too.
Send them to me if you like.
It's in the whereby link, right there.
But why do you think that gender dysphoria? Why alleviating? Why is it you have? Why is that? Why is alleviating that such a high concern as opposed to many other like
feel good?
Well, yeah, but there's lots of reasons. Being popular, feeling like your body size, whether you're fat or skinny, you're happy with your body, like.
You should try to alleviate all these things. Yeah, if there's a fat kid who's upset about being fat, you should work on helping get him to lose weight.
Shit. Okay, well, the fat phobia people, would be really mad at you right now.
I don't let them be mad then.
You do what makes them feel
all
best.
Right, we threw them under the bus. Okay, well,
I don't give a fuck. You do what makes the kid feel best. Like, there's not a gotcha. It's like, if they felt dysphoric about being
there's more things that matter too than just someone's
okay, but what about you're a parent?
What are we talking about
something
here?
Wrong and you ground them, they're obviously upset, right? Do we just unground them because that's what make them feel the best?
I want to address what Mick just said. There's more things that matter than feelings. There's more. How bad can a kid feel before that doesn't apply? If they feel like shit and they're suicidal, would you still say there's more than just feelings? Like, come on, apply this consistently. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help your arguments get better.
Okay,
I'm sick.
At some point, where like you're gonna have emotional blackmail arguments and this and that, right? Like, it can't be all about feelings. And at some point, you have to say, look, feelings aren't going to be equal. There's going to be some kids that are confident, some that are very insecure. You're never going to even for that. At some point, you got to teach math.
Well, at some point, like I you know what? You've convinced me again. I don't think feelings should matter. So if you are uncomfortable with gay people, like sexual identity and sexual orientation and gender identity being taught in schools, your feelings just don't matter. Like, you can't convince me that they matter.
That's the point.
See, isn't that a stupid argument?
Of course it is, because that's a dumb argument. Yes, but that's not my argument. My argument comes from, I don't think they have the abstraction capability to do this. By confusing them, we're actually setting them back. Because I believe that if you're teaching math, Jangles, you want your kids, you would pride yourself if you improve this kid's scores by 10%. You'd brag about that. And you should deserve the accolades for that. But like, what I think is we're actually going to confuse them.
Do you know what a hamperance it would be if I was teaching math and I had to base my lesson plan on what confused kids? Do you know what a hamperance that would be? The entire point of learning is
no, you'd want
the entire point of learning is that you're teaching kids things they don't already know, and you might have to explain them to them multiple times, 10 times, 50 times.
Sure, but the idea.
By the way, I gotta go in a couple minutes here, guys.
Would be quicker, faster. Okay. Wait, I kind of. Mick, I invited Jangles and everybody on the stream. Thanks for entertaining it. I appreciate it. I read people's super chats and I invite people on people's streams that aren't mine. So this is my fault a little bit, but I enjoy it because I like these guys. I think that they're good lefties that I think they are able to have friends across the aisle, and that's the important part, because like we can't move this forward if we hate each other.
I do agree with that. Yeah.
Hey,
I do agree.
moment of like a hug circle. Isn't it way more fun to talk to people who you disagree with?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Totally. That's why we got better
100%.
discourse. Michael's been part of it many times. You're going to be part of it again. Jangles, you're coming April 23rd.
Are you
Dallas,
guys
Texas?
Yeah, are you guys going to be
Texas.
there on the 23rd or whatever? Right?
I've never even heard of this event. I don't know what
What that event sucks. So anyone that is checking this out or listening, this Saturday or not next Saturday, April 23rd in Fort Worth, they are a lot of fun because the thing is, it not only you can watch the live stream, but it's much more fun to be there in person because like there's not only a lot of interaction with speakers that you can talk to at the bar and so on and so forth, but you can actually talk cross out. I spend most of my time with people on the left and we party till 4 a.m. and I'm not even tired. They're a lot of fun. Would you guys agree? I mean, could that like do you enjoy going to the events, Jangles and Michael?
I disagree with saying it up till 4 a.m. I get real tired. Before that, yeah, they're fun.
Yeah. But
that last one was fun. For sure.
Well, I have a lot of fun. I don't know, so I shouldn't tell people to sell it for me, but it's just I think it's cool, and everybody comes. The audience is reasonably split. You don't feel like a minority, whatever political position you come from, and you can actually, if you want to,
you do if you're fucking left.
There were 30% of the people that were left. That's a sizable minority that you don't feel outnumbered. I spent all my time with you guys in your circle, and it was a lot of fun. And everybody there was cool. That's the thing. So if you're black pilled and you're on the right, come talk to the lefties at Better Discourse because they're pretty cool.
That is me. Yeah. Will do.
Hey, Mick, are you going to be there?
I will be there. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, good to meet you guys. Even though we don't agree at all on pretty much anything, but that's okay. It was good talking to you guys.
I prefer these conversations like this with a beer in his stream than fists. That's I think we can all agree that's better.
Are you? What? Do you have a beer?
Jangles wants to jiu-jitsu roll with me. You could probably kick my ass.
No. Do you have a beer, Brian?
I do. It is now empty.
Oh, okay. Okay. Never mind. Sorry.
Do you do jiu-jitsu?
I apologize.
Jangles?
No.
I could do a cartwheel.
No.
Is that jiu-jitsu?
With his husband naked.
I'm not that skilled yet. That's
naked
like
jiu-jitsu.
That's like level 12. I'm not there yet.
All right.
Well, maybe you could power level up before the event.
All right, guys. Thanks. Anybody that's been listening, anyone that listens in the future here, thanks for listening. Check out Jangles. You guys want to give a plug since you're on here?
Hi, I'm Jangles.
Your channels.
Search Jangles.
What?
Hi,
just Jangles. That's it.
Justin Gibson, Jangles Science Lad, and then the other is Liberal Sanity Project on YouTube. Michael, he goes by A27L, which I guess he joined the WEF.
Who knows what that means?
He's got a QR code now.
There you go. All right, guys. Peace.
Peace out, buddy.
All right, see you guys.
Love and rock and roll, sir.